Hello all, I'm Scarop SCS, but that's not important right now as in this episode of Cogs, Gears and Optic Sensors, we are continuing to look at the debut Transformers story from Marvel UK, the second part of Man of Iron, spread across UK issues 11 and 12 in the February of 1985 and issue 34 of the US title in the July of 1987, with this exclusive cover from artist Tom Morgan. This story remained the only UK tale to be reused by Marvel US in the entirety of their 80-issue run, which, if I were to guess, is most likely because it simply wouldn't continuity clash with anything else. Steve Parkhouse continues on the writing duties, with Mike Collins taking over on the art, and we start exactly where we left off, with human Sammy Harker being driven at speed through the English countryside by Jazz, who tries to allay any fears a young protagonist may have, whilst letting on that Sammy has vital information for the Autobots. Jazz continues to give Sammy and simultaneously the reader a breakdown of how they are robots in disguise that hide in plain sight, whilst using Mirage as a driverless F1 car on public roads to illustrate his point, and also confirming to Sammy that they have already met in the woodlands where Sammy was playing earlier on in the story. As Jazz is formally introducing himself, both Mirage and Trailbreaker join the convoy, pun absolutely intended, but it's not long before a pair of very familiar looking jet fighters, one of which is sporting a very familiar looking deco, is hot on their tail and they dive in and engage without any warning. Trailbreaker takes the brunt of the assault, so maybe I was wrong last episode about him having the most subtle of the car modes, and if you know the original G1 toy that Collins was working from, effectively loses the entirety of his robot mode from the knees down, as well as his arms from the elbow. As the master of understatement tells Jazz that he's hit bad, Jazz responds by trying to reassure Sammy, and Trailbreaker reiterates telling him that everything has gone, which would appear to be entirely accurate from the panel that the reader has just seen. None of the Seekers are called out by name by our Autobot heroes, and as Mirage is firmly in their sights, he lives up to his own name and pulls a bait and switch, causing the foe on his tail to fly directly into a bridge, resulting in significant damage to both. The action, however, is not over yet, as Sammy and Jazz are met with another Decepticon head-on, who engages them from a rather odd part of the plane in this panel, as they've been drawn in alt mode with the cluster bombs and not the null rays, as Sammy grabs a steering wheel and, despite not even being old enough to hold a provisional license, swerves away, and as he's lauded by Jazz for his quick thinking, he reveals what a selfish little brat he actually is, as it transpires he was only trying to save himself, which, given his kidnapping, is not entirely unreasonable at this point in the story. However, as we all know with Seekers, where there's two, there's three, and Bluestreak, heeding Mirage's warning, calmly converts to robot mode and, without uttering a single word, lines the last of the trio up in his viewfinder and takes them down without incident, leaving his opponent crashed and burned on the motorway as he coolly berates Jazz for having made himself a target in the first place. Later, as dusk settles, Sammy is rudely awakened by his captors as he realises he has been taken to a real-life alien craft, only for Optimus to emerge with a real close encounters of the third kind vibe in the art here. And the next page gives us a full image of the Autobot leader as he brings the young human into the fold and quizzes him on the mysterious drawing that was gifted to him by his dad Roy. Sammy quickly makes the correlation between the figure of legend and the life forms before him, and Jazz confirms that the Autobots share the same suspicions, as Optimus Prime reveals that they have tracked a mysterious signal all the way to merry old England, and that the race against time is on with both the Decepticons and the British Army trying to find the elusive prize under Stantham Castle, which both Optimus and his number two have concluded are further stranded Autobots akin to themselves. As suspected, at the site of the castle itself, a full military operation is underway and a command office has been set up, as Captain Whiteley appraises his superior of the situation, having also come to the same conclusion that Sam and the Autobots have, that the craft is of extraterrestrial origin and is emitting signals of some description. Now, quite why Roy Harker is at work and not helping the police with their inquiries into his son's disappearance, him having been kidnapped by a driverless car, I couldn't tell you, but now having been informed that aliens exist, his day goes from bad to, let's be honest, awful, as the ground shakes and one of our servicemen alerts the captain to the presence of something, which, as we turn the page, is revealed to be no less than the Man of Iron himself as he emerges from the ground. The military personnel make a hasty tactical withdrawal, definitely not a retreat, as the mysterious Cybertronian unleashes a single well-aimed shot at an army jeep, destroying it in the process as he attempts to protect the incursion into his home. It never rains but it pours though, and with a Seeker jet appearing on scene, the silent Decepticon soldier obliterates the Man of Iron with two carefully aimed shots from his null rays. The Autobot craft sadly hurtles in seconds too late to save their unknown colleague, and Jazz deploys with a timely ejection of the young Sammy to a hopeful place of safety. Jazz accelerates full force towards the Seeker, and in a scene really reminiscent of the G1 cartoon's opening credits, launches himself towards his foe, knocking him off his feet in the process. Sammy, however, is reunited with his father and brings him up to speed on events as a well-placed shot from the Autobot craft dispatches Laserbeak without any issue. And as Jazz eyes up the fleeing Decepticon he'd faced off with earlier and drops him out of the sky with one well-aimed shot from his toy model accurate shoulder rocket, the battle rages on ahead, with mechanical beams plummeting out of the sky ablaze, thankfully missing the listed building in the process, and the Decepticons soon turn heel. We're not done yet though, as the ship itself still leaves the Autobots with a quandary, and Optimus assesses that the Autobots need to stay on Earth to counter the threat from Megatron and his faction, as he orders Jazz to destroy the Cybertronian technology so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. But little did either of them know that the robot known only as the Navigator was on standby mode inside as Jazz incinerates the scene, clearly due diligence not being high on their agenda. This leaves future visitors to Stantham Castle none the wiser, and poor Sammy with a fairly hefty therapy bill, which is probably why he's never seen or heard of again in the Marvel stories. So, before we conclude, we should mention some of the character depictions in this book. The Decepticons never speak, not a single word, which makes them really chilling and menacing villains, as opposed to the usual bluster that goes with the dialogue and them calling out their individual weapons from their toy bios. The colouring definitely needs a mention. Given that none of the Seekers are named directly, it is a little convoluted as to who does what depending on which version of the book you're reading. When the Man of Iron is destroyed by a Seeker, Roy Harker exclaims that he seems to appear from nowhere. In the original black and white presentation, this would fit Skyward's teleporting, but he's decked out as Thundercracker in the UK collected comics version, with only the original issue's cover, which was a reused panel using the Skywarp deco. This is further compounded by the US printing portraying him as Starscream. A much later letters page in issue 63 of the UK title formalises it as being Thundercracker that did the deed, but if you do have a favourite Seeker or version of the story, I suggest you just go with that. And there it is, we have finished Man of Iron. Let me know in the comments below where it ranks with the rest of the UK material for you. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and even turn on notifications. If you didn't leave a like anyway, go on, treat yourself. If you want to come and say hi or tell your friends about the channel on social media, you can find me here. So thanks for watching along everybody, and above all, stay safe.